Hey, everybody, welcome to this week's Star Report. This is Jason here at New Dimensions Crystals and Reiki in downtown Brenham, Texas. And we are coming to you this week of November the 27th through December the 3rd, 2024. And everything is super fantastic. It feels a little different. It's almost like the energy of the planet is where am I and what am I doing here? Kind of like showing up at a new school. Sometimes you can accompany that with shift in timelines, the expansion of consciousness, or if you want to get into the physicality of it all, the lowering of the Earth's magnetic shield from cosmic rays so that we are more spacey. That could all be contributing to your sense of what the heck is going on this. And so let's jump right into it. Of course, seems like my notes were super far away. I'm going to move them closer to me so I can look at them. And as usual, we start with the sun going on here this week. The sun has become active. There's some sunspots, which are the little things that cause solar flares. And sometimes those solar flares produce CMEs if you're new here. And so there is on the way to Earth as we speak an M class, which is slightly large, but not as big as an X class. And so that M class solar flare, CME, coronal mass ejection, is slated to impact us here in the United States. If you're celebrating Thanksgiving, should be here Thanksgiving evening. So tomorrow, Thursday in evening time into Friday. And as a reminder, those CMEs really are just sort of triggering of sometimes mental review, sometimes heart palpitations. If you are on a mood disorder or a spectrum disorder, sometimes it causes a flare up of that. If you have a chronic disease like a lupus, sometimes it has a flare up of that. This is a small one, so I wouldn't expect anything like that to happen. Perhaps, though, pay attention to ingredient lists if you are going to share holiday meals outside of the home, because maybe they've got something in there that causes an allergy. And contributes to the flare up of the sun. Of course, the sun, when its rays hit us, are cleansing and activating, right? So maybe it's good that it's happening in the evening time if you are in the crowd that has trepidation of interacting with family during the holidays, or if people just want to discuss things that they don't agree upon, then by the evening time and the next day, the sun will help you clear that away. So pay attention to that. The sun, in general, should be doing a little uptick over the next couple of weeks. So look for continued solar activity. That leads us to what sun sign are we in? We're in Sagittarius. At least that's what my notes say. So we'll go with it. And of course, those relate alchemically to the thighs and the liver, right? So thighs physically are really where we produce a lot of our power to move, right? To do new things, to move on. And also um, a lot of energy is produced there hormonally. So pay attention to that. And then also the Sagittarius alchemically relates to the liver. So maybe comment on things that trigger the liver, whether that is diet oriented or libation oriented. It could have a higher impact, which makes perfect sense. We're heading into sports playoffs. We're heading into holiday season, and sometimes the only activity to participate in that we can all share is production or participation in drinking things that mess with our liver. So just sort of pay attention that alchemically that could be triggered even more, right? So just because you can do it all day and it's a tradition, maybe do it to a lesser degree if you're trying not to trigger your spiritual consciousness to sort of have some crisis. So pay attention to that. That sounds great. Sounds like very good advice to have on a Thanksgiving weekend here in the United States. Of course, I know some of y'all are not in the continental United States watching, so it's not Thanksgiving for you. But nonetheless, same thing. If you're just participating to keep warm because you are in climates where it's super cold, then also pay attention to that. We are currently in one, two, three, four, five retrogrades. A couple of the common ones that we're still in that haven't left just yet We're in Neptune retrograde, and that's just really the observation of your cosmic consciousness, right? That you exist outside the body, that you're some kind of eternal soul that is going to be aware of things that seem to be uh, non non normal that are interacted with, right? And so that's just sort of sometimes that's an increase in intuition, right? Where you just sort of know some things and it's your intuition guiding you along. But yeah, influence from somewhere beyond the physical mind and the physical self, cosmic consciousness. Also, we are in Chiron retrograde, which is really about healing the limitations that you've put on yourself. And what that means by healing is really just sort of helping those and readjusting those and not using those as blame or regret, right? Oh, if I would have just whatever. Chiron's not really helping you do that or asking you to do that. It's asking you to review, hey, where have I limited myself that I shouldn't have? And how can I make the adjustment so that it's not a limitation anymore and sort of see where that leads you. Uranus is in retrograde, and that's really about the 3D self, right? So the physical form of you. And sometimes how you present that physical form out into a public realm, right? So that how that 3D form interacts in a culture or a community. And so that's a lot of things. That's diet, right? That's weight management. That's skincare. That's the material you put on the body, how that makes you vibrate, right? All the things that sort of seem like micro, not micro, yeah, micro. Like there's a whole bunch of micro adjustments you can make to your body, and there's a whole industry that is trying to get you to focus on those micro things, right? So just do as many as you can, but don't get overwhelmed in did I use the right toothpaste? Did I brush the right time? Did I use the right toothpaste or toothbrush? Uh, you know, what's the 85 ingredients in my skincare? Maybe I could upgrade it so that, the 86th one is the one that makes me whatever, right? So don't get overly micromanaged in that, but it really is about rebuilding the 3D self, right? And so you want to find the ones that are most accessible, all right. So you want to do this about habit, but it also wants to be a habit that's achievable, right? And then, maybe it's even a behavior, not even a product that you add to your health regimen, right? So that as you do a habit more and more, it has more and more positive results, which you can build upon to do the micro things. So, yeah, so don't get all caught up in that. But yeah, the Uranus being a retrograde is how can I rebuild my 3D self? How can I make my hair just as curly as Jason's? um this is really sort of a spiritual development. I would sort of say that my hair was super straight, because I liked it that way. I used to be like a dude that liked to just have every hair in the correct place. So this is a little bit about letting go, but also this I think is about the amount of spiritual energy that moves through the crown and all the stuff that goes up and down in between spiritual realm, so that it's more spiral, right? So that the energy running through the hairs is actually curly. Take that for what you will. That's interesting. Didn't know I was going to go there today. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Um, Moves us into Jupiter retrograde. Jupiter retrograde is about self worth and entrepreneurship, right? So you're worthy of actually having enough time off, money, food to actually share the holidays if you're, in close proximity of people like that. And then also entrepreneur, right? You are worthy enough and have a big enough stake in being able to create your own abundance, right? So not necessarily having to have a job and work for others. So entrepreneurship is sort of seeing the field for what it is and seeing your place in that field, and then being able to provide a service or value so that you can actually provide for yourself and your family. Also, we just entered this week Mercury retrograde, the final retrograde of 2024. In Mercury retrograde, of course, is about communication, travel, and relationships. This time in particular, though, after having Pluto move into Aquarius, this is sort of a Mercury retrograde review of the last 19 years. So if there are some strange people that are just popping back up, haven't been in your life in the last 19 years, it's a 19-year cycle. That 19-year cycle is 2005 is when that would have started, right? And so basically that would have been, for me, just as an example, that had been 2 years out of graduate, 2.5 years out of graduating seminary, right? So all of those interpersonal relationships, public understandings of who I am and what I bring to the table, and people and events and processes that I thought might have been in the way of that, or that were in the way of that, or that weren't helping the production of that in the way that they could, all under for review, right? Um, which sort of is showing up for me just as an example, people wondering, is there a regular gathering that I could do besides a video every week where people can gather and we can talk about spiritual things and I can sort of guide a whatever, right? That's like leading a church, Jason. Yeah, so there's that, and then ways to produce that so that it is the most efficacious, right? So I hear those questions, I discern for myself what that looks like and maybe what form it will take, right? So all of these things that I'm fixing, I am still from Texas, fixing to tell you in the report are really me taking my own life under advisement of, is this current form of Jason in his shop in this video the best way and the only way to be who I am and what I am. So sort of pay attention to that 19-year cycle. I know just by people that have been coming in the shop that this 19-year cycle is really jacking with you. Um, but it's okay. It's jacking with you for good stuff, right? It might seem overwhelming. It really is making you realize who you've become. And I don't want to say it's snatching away nostalgia, but it's giving you a clear point of view that, looking back with rose-colored glasses on how good it used to be, might not be the truth, and that your development is about leaving those things and relationships behind so that you can do something different and more, perhaps. Anywho, moving right along. Today, Wednesday, the 27th, day before Thanksgiving here in the United States. The moon is currently the farthest away it's going to be from Earth all month, right? So it goes on ellipsis. So it's sort of, oh, it's so far away and it comes. So it's not like too far away. You're not going to notice it necessarily with the naked eye, but that moon being farthest away from Earth all month is something to pay attention to. The divine feminine, that sort of cleansing nature of the moon, and it is moving into new this weekend. Pay attention to that. Mercury is now in full retrograde, and then there is a Mars in Sun alignment, which is really triggering or focusing. Let's say focus. Focusing is a good word. Triggering is not. Maybe it is. Who knows? Anyhow, the focus or the highlight is really on the higher mind, right? So your ability to think about the bigger things, right? A lot of times when people get into conversations like, oh, that's above my pay grade or whatever, but this is really sort of, it's not for spiritual leaders. It's not for religious icons. It's really for everybody to have this higher mind conversation. And so that's the alignment that's sort of having its day. And really that alignment of the higher mind is sort of a decluttering. You want to think about as you raise your vibration, and this used to be a thing, right? Why monks used to shave that bald spot into their head. That the decluttering of that space, right? So you want to think of leaves falling off trees, is access to the higher mind. There's less things to think about, and there's more focus. So pay attention to that energy sort of hitting you today. That might make you feel like you don't want to be at work if you're not already off for the holidays. So just sort of mind that energy, and that energy lasts for a couple days. Probably the whole season, because that's what fall is about. Moves us into tomorrow, Thursday, Thanksgiving in the United States. This weekend's new moon, Mercury retrograde, and Pluto in Aquarius. You have new insight into your origins, right? So that's just sort of a focus to sort of have, I'm so old. I'm old enough to sort of see the iterations of how Thanksgiving was as a kid, how Thanksgiving was as a young adult, still in higher education, how it is, during adult life where I've moved away, and then now how it is having a kid and sort of having all that stuff. So it's really about moving into this age of Aquarius, this new insight in my origins. Who am I? What am I doing here? Right? It's not necessarily limited to the DNA or the what's the word? The traditions that have been built. Right? You're more than all of that, and so sort of you have this perspective this year with all these cosmic happenings of, wow, I'm not just that, but I'm something outside of that, and these things While they may have seemed detracting or maybe even uplifting, and you could have like the best Thanksgivings ever and you've never missed a one and everybody's always made you feel perfect about yourself. That's good too. But for the most part, what we hear about is people that don't have that experience. This is really an existence that you sort of pay attention to, which is above that or outside of that or in addition to. And there's sort of an energy that's moving with this sort of powered by Venus, which on Thursday really the focus is that no matter the process of where you are in life, age wise, relationship wise, that the focus should really be that you're a divine eternal soul worthy of love and affection, and you're worthy of self love, right? So if you are not receiving that, at least give it to yourself for the holiday. Sounds great. Moves us into Friday. Um, what did I write about that? Oh, yeah, Friday. I was like, what am I writing about that? So, Friday the 29th is really about embracing the Mercury retrograde and being direct in your communications, right? This is what's going on. This is what I need. And then double checking, right? So, if Mercury in retrograde, sometimes about miscommunication or the a rehashing of old communications, be direct, right? Maybe you weren't direct in the past, and then sort of double check. Did you hear me? Did my reservation go through online? All that fun stuff about travel that happens during the holiday season. Pay attention to that on Friday. Leads into Saturday and Sunday. Probably just sort of think of that as one big energy day that lasts a little longer than 24 hours. It's really going to be the energy of the new moon, right? So we're having the new moon over the weekend, and the focus is really cosmically energy that you still have to let go of and leave behind, right? So all these things are sort of reiterating over that Pluto into Aquarius, right? What are you still carrying with you from 2005 that you really don't need anymore? Sometimes this is a box of goodies that you've moved 10 times and haven't opened since 2005, right? So it could be something as simple as that. And sometimes it's just a belief system about the self or what your own potentiality is, right? A lot of times we sort of stop looking at our potential of growth once, especially people that are into higher education. Since that was after my master's degree and beginning my doctoral work, right? Sometimes people plateau like, oh, I'm only this, and so whatever you see the world as with that little bit of education, or where you stopped that sort of exploration of who you could be, that's what you sort of do, right? And so maybe you've been carrying along for 19 years that limitation that I'm only this, but I could be that, especially if that interpretation is refuted by your current interactions with people who sort of think, oh, hey, you could be doing this. Why are you settling for that? Good energy of the weekend to sort of pay attention to. Yeah. And so just 2005, think about that's a lot of years. If you need sort of a calendar date, I guess some of y'all might have only been born in 2005 that watch this. Anywho, that's the energy of the weekend. Moves us into Monday. Um, Monday really sort of feels like an energy where everything honestly becomes clear, but it's ready to be put together. And so the energy that's sort of going to be there is almost, I don't know if anybody's ever put together a piece of furniture that came in a box and there's these instructions, and maybe there's not enough space on the floor or the room that you're doing it in. So you need to go clear a space where you can get all the pieces right. And then nothing is in that zone except for the pieces that need to be put together. That's the energy of Monday. Um, and so it's going to be that sometimes you might be annoyed by that. Like, hey, I can't believe I don't have a clear space to put together some furniture. But the energy is really past that part, right? Whatever irritation to get to that, hey, I'm fixing to put together this piece of furniture. The energy is of like, oh, okay, now I've got everything prepared. What's my first action, right? And so this is your first action of the rest of your life and next 19-year cycle, your divine eternal soul worthy of love and affection. Now what? All that kind of stuff sort of comes up on Monday. Yay, fun day. I think that's great. Great. The reevaluation of the self is always interesting to me, which is why I do what I do, because I get to reevaluate myself and then help others do it for them. Leads into Tuesday, the 3rd. Tuesday the 3rd is going to feel like after a good nap. right? You wake up and like, oh my gosh, who am I? What am I doing here? And your sort of perspective changes, right? Maybe you were in fatigue, maybe you were worried, right? And your body just sort of shut down. You're like, oh, I think this is really the feeling after a unintentional nap, like you're just sitting there and you rack out, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what's going on? And the world just looks a little different. The body's not functioning necessarily on command of the brain. That's the energy of Tuesday. Your perspective changes, and really, you want to spend the day, if you haven't gone back to work, even if you have gone back to work, sort of exploring who is this person who is this person driving your physical vehicle, right? What are their skill sets? Does do they have more command over this physical vehicle to do things where I thought this body couldn't do? Right. So that's the reevaluation that happens on Tuesday. And then, of course, that brings us to the end of our week next Wednesday, where I will return to the shop. So, in case you're wondering, I am only here recording the video for today, Wednesday, the 27th. The shop will be closed until next Wednesday. Of course, if you've pre booked your appointments, then those are still going to be held next week. NewDimensionsCrystals.com if you want to see if there's any availabilities, and maybe you're off the beginning of next week. But I think that's it. So yeah, I said that NewDimensionsCrystals.com. Like and subscribe. I love that y'all are here listening to this. Like and subscribe. Love that you're here listening to this. NewDimensionsCrystals.com. Yeah, I think that's everything. That's the ending of my show for this week. And of course, we'll be back next week. Until then, everybody, as I find the stop button, many blessings.